Paul Valencia with Clark County Today. Tony Liberatore from Fort Vancouver High School is to my kind of left and kind of straight away.
Yeah.
Cale Piland of Evergreen Public Schools is to my right a little, to the diagonal. We've had to switch it up. There's some
kind of northeast.
Weird things with microphones. Not that you guys can see us, but we have an excuse if this podcast episode goes wrong, right?
Very much so.
We're just in different
Creatures
spots.
of habit. We're in
Yeah,
different
so
Yep.
anyway, Tony is an associate principal. We just say, can we just call you the principal? I know you're not officially the principal, but you might as well be. At Fort Vancouver High
Really?
School. And
Wow.
I don't know if I
don't know how his principal would feel about that.
That's what I'm wondering. Why am I kind of the principal? I have no
Why
idea.
don't you just call him the superintendent?
because of this podcast, you are the face of
okay.
Vancouver schools. And former athletic director, Cale, a former state champion football coach and athletic director, and now the athletic director of all the schools, which is weird because, I don't know. It's a weird job.
They each have their own athletic directors.
Yeah, I know, but
Right.
you're the athletic director of the entire district. Oh my gosh, nothing happens in athletics without your say so.
Oh, yeah,
Actually,
sure.
a lot of stuff
It's not a lie if
Beg
you
for
believe it, Paul.
forgiveness.
But we sit around every couple of weeks and talk about the issues of high school sports from, administrator's perspective. And today we've got some really interesting subjects. We've got flag football did not get passed, so it will not be a sport this coming school year for the WIAA. And we're going to talk about the whys, a little bit of that. We're going to talk about transgender athletes in high school sports, and it showed up in Oregon, in our neighbors, with the state track meet last weekend. And we're going to talk a little bit about eligibility and how it all works and why it works. And yeah, it's a controversial subject that's national. And let's see, we'll talk about an update on football, high school football playoffs. And we talked about a couple of weeks ago with that Week 10 stuff, and things have changed, possibly, maybe. Or is it still up in the air, Cale?
It's still up in the air.
Still
Yeah,
up
for
there.
the lower, for the 2A and below.
For the
It still
2A
is.
and below, which would affect
Is that
a lot of our schools.
B's too then? Or just 2A,
Yeah,
1A?
no, I believe it's all the way.
All right,
to
we'll
the
get
end.
to that.
Nothing has been
We're
finalized
going to get
there.
to that. And then we'll do a shout out for Spring Sports Championships this week in Washington. We got some breaking news. We're recording this on, Wednesday, May 22nd. And we just learned that the Mountain View boys golf team won the state team title, and the Camas girls golf team won the team's title. So that happened the official results were just announced within the last 20 minutes of this recording. And so congratulations to them. And then all the rest of the state championships are this weekend all over the state. Softball, baseball, soccer, track and
GSHL and
field,
Clark
tennis.
County will have a lot of
Representation?
yes.
Yes, it's going to be a busy weekend. But first, I don't know where we should start. I guess we can just start with the transgender athletes and what happened in Oregon. Well, it shouldn't have been a surprise to anyone because this athlete, her name is Aiden Gallagher. She was competing all season. In fact, I know kind of became, what do they call it, social media famous a few weeks ago at a meet. So this is a transgender girl who is competing in Oregon, following the rules that Oregon has in place, and ended up qualifying for state and won the 200, I believe, and finished second in the 400.
In the 4. Yep.
And hey, there's a lot of discussion about transgender athletes, especially transgender girls competing against, I guess, what we call biological girls, or biological women at the college ranks, and it is controversial. But I wanted to say that there are rules in place, and there are laws in place, and in Oregon and also in Washington, you can compete with whatever you identify as. Is that correct, Cale, from Tony?
That's accurate.
That's
Yep.
accurate. And
Yep.
I did talk to Mick Hoffman, the executive director of the WIAA today, and he confirmed. It turns out Washington's rule on this subject is like 16 or 17 years old. They have not changed it.
First in the country.
And Tony says it was the first in the country. But we're not sure, and Mick is not sure if there's ever been a transgender athlete that has won anything in the state of Washington. There's never been anyone publicly who's been a transgender that we know of.
Yep.
But nowadays, so a week ago or so, when I knew this was going to happen, I predicted, this is going to go national because she was seated first in one of the two events, and she won, And it did go national, and in my opinion, it went national for the wrong reasons. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. But yeah, there are a lot of discussions on, is this fair? Is this right? What do we do? All I got to say is there's no easy answer here. There is no easy answer if we want people to compete in high school sports, and participation does matter. So before I get into what went wrong, in my opinion, in Oregon, Cale, Tony, do you have any extra thoughts before I get into my thing?
No, I support in the Washington State, the OSPI, and then WIAA. That, like you said, that policy's been around 15 to 17 years. I couldn't find exactly when it was implemented, but the quote I found was from Mike Colbreeze.
Right.
So
it's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah, it has worked for Washington.
Yep. Cale?
Well, and to add on to that, I sat through a webinar actually today about the revisions that have just gone into place with Title IX.
Yeah, and this is federal. This
yes,
is national rules.
And it's illegal through Title IX to have any sort of discrimination based off of gender identity now. So, yeah, I mean those regulations are in place, and our state adheres to them.
So, what I want everyone to know, I don't care which side of the issue you're on in this, is that the state of Oregon and the OSAA, and if it happens in Washington, which it probably will happen in the future in Washington, they are following the law. And what Mick Hoffman told me is that they're not in the business of violating any law that they know of. So they really can't do much about it. So if someone is against transgender athletes competing in what they consider the wrong gender, taking it out on the athletes is not the right place. It's got to go through the legislature. It's got to go through the voting booth or whatever, if that's what you want to do. I'm going to tell you, I think most people who know me know I lean right conservatively. I'm more conservative. I am absolutely for biological women's sports athletes. I think I do not want to live in a world without women's sports. But I'm also I'm an ally of the LGBTQ community, the big alphabet community. I have a loved one who is a transgender, and I've learned so much from her over the last couple of years. And she lives in my house, okay? It's my daughter. And I have just been educated so much through all of this. And it's fun because I don't know if it's fun, but we have discussions about transgender issues all the time from a conservative point of view, from a trans point of view, and we do it respectfully and lovingly. We can have this, we can disagree. I wish I could actually record some of these conversations because they enlighten me, and I think I enlighten her with some things. So we do not agree on a lot of this stuff, but we also agree there's no easy answer. But here's what I agree, and I think Tony and Cale agree. A 15 or 16-year-old girl, transgender girl, won a state title, and people booed her. People booed at a high school event a 15 or 16-year-old, and it really rubbed me the wrong way. And I've got a dear friend who said, well, they're not booing her, they're booing the policy of OSAA or the state of Oregon or whatever. Okay, at the event, when the race is going on, just like when we're watching our favorite sports team, you're watching your Mariners, you might yell something out on the TV screen or at the game, and then you realize a few minutes later it's not that big of a deal, or maybe you were even wrong or whatever. But at the podium, at the podium where they announce all the winners, they cheered for the other 7 girls, and then they booed Aiden when she got on the podium for first place. And I don't care if you're booing the policy. A 15 or 16-year-old doesn't hear that. They just hear they're booing her. And
well, I don't even know if they're booing the policy. I'm going to be honest with you. That's.
I think maybe some folks are hiding behind that as the reason they were booing.
In my world, that's targeted behavior.
But I want to be fair, though. I do want to be fair. There are people that I respect and admire who do think, no, they're really just booing the policy, and so I get that.
Can policies be booed?
The policy doesn't feel anything when it hears the boo.
I'm just wondering, can policies be booed? But
yeah,
I get
don't
it.
know. But what I just wanted to know is that, and this is, I have a group text with a bunch of friends of mine that, and someone posted this tweet on there about, and it was Riley Gaines who had retweeted the video. And Riley Gaines, as you know, is the most outspoken woman athlete who is against transgenders competing against women. And I respect her opinion, and oftentimes I'm on her side. But what I didn't like what she did, and then the libs of TikTok, they went after the athlete, not the policy. And I can't say that Riley went after the athlete, but she retweeted stuff that did go after the athlete. And to me, it's like, you don't boo a teenager. You don't boo a teenager who didn't break any rules. That's the second thing, because Aiden, I believe is her name, did not break any rules, right? I mean, that we know of.
She was competing under the guidelines that the OSAA has student athletes in Oregon compete.
Right. And a third thing is we shouldn't be booing a teen who is going through significant challenges in their life. And because, I mean, I didn't know anything about transgenderism until about 3 years ago. I mean, I knew a little.
Sure.
I knew the basics of, ignorance or whatever. But I didn't know hardly anything. I've learned so much. But when someone hates the body they're in, and there is a thing called gender dysphoria, and when you go through therapy and you find out how real that is, it's scary as a parent. It's scary for the teen. And I don't know. I know there's that slippery slope argument where people say people are doing this to get scholarships, to do this or whatever.
Right.
Until proven otherwise, I don't believe this person from Oregon decided to transition to win a track and field championship. I just don't believe that happened.
I don't think that.
And I just, again, trust me, I'm going out there on the conservative side of the world. I want to defend women's sports. I love women's sports, and I don't want to live in a world where they're not here. And some women believe women's sports is being attacked by this, and I kind of understand that. But please, please, please do not take it out on a 15 or 16-year-old who is going through stuff that most of you probably don't understand. I'm living it. I've been living it as a dad, and it's hard for me to understand sometimes. So I can imagine people who don't know what it's like really don't know. And trust me, it is difficult, and we do not need to be booing the athlete. You don't like the policy? Call your congressperson. call the school board, call the OSA, the WIAA or whatever, and try to get things changed through the legal process, but don't boo a 16-year-old. And I know that's a little bit of that's enough for me. You guys take it away for a second.
No. Paul, I mean, 100% agree with you, and I know Tony does too. I can't think of really any scenario at a high school sporting event where it's really isn't okay for kids, but it's adults to be booing a 15, 16, 17-year-old. I mean, even if you're in a situation where somebody threw a punch or something like that. I mean, it's a kid, and I don't know. I was really blown away when I initially I was listening to John Canzano's show earlier this week, and he had a guest on, and they were talking about this. I was like, no, because I hadn't read about it yet. I was like, no, they didn't actually boo her at the state track meet. I mean, that's that's pretty low. That's pretty low.
Right. And then again, national social media posts named the person and said he is a cheater. It's kind of like, politically speaking, we're not supposed to go after the president's children. We tried to stay away from the Bush daughters, the Obama daughters, but then when someone on the extreme would go after one of them, and then they would rightfully be criticized. And then the same thing happened with Trump's son, the younger son who was in high school or even before high school. And it's like, hey, and then it was just the flip side. It was just the flip. It was the left attacking the president's child or whatever, and then the right had to go, you don't do this. Well, that's kind of how I am with all teens when it comes to this. Do not let a 15 to 16-year-old in Oregon be a pawn in your political game. But if you want to argue for the rights of biological or traditional women's sports, that's fine. But just don't use a teenager to make your cause. And don't call. That's the thing. Aiden is not a cheater. She followed the rules.
No, you would have to be breaking rules.
So she's not a cheater. And the other thing is that we know we've all seen or heard of athletes in Clark County, Washington, who have gone around the system for transfer rules or just blatantly broken the rules. And I mean, there's been cheating in high school sports for years, and there still is cheating in high school sports. And
what?
Yeah. You guys are looking at me like it never happens.
Come on. There's not a once a month hearing for this type of stuff.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, we got people living at post-it storage facilities in Bellevue, right, to play football. I mean,
That was a school, please, Paul.
Could have cost a high school and down here maybe a state championship.
Yeah, that's right. I think
know.
Bellevue won a state title of the year. They might have had ineligible players playing for them.
I wouldn't know anything
know.
about
That
that.
or in the NFL.
Cale might have
now.
been coaching the team that lost to that team. I don't know. I don't know. But I do know that year it just says vacated on the state championship football. It doesn't say Union won, but it doesn't say. Yeah. Anyway.
No,
so,
no,
okay.
there's no banner in the gym.
Yeah. Union's banner. We didn't cheat.
Well, Paul, not only didn't she cheat, I mean, she was following the rules, and they were rules that she isn't responsible for having created.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
so when you're taking, I understand. Look, it's not there's not an easy answer to this debate. I mean, there are points on both sides that I think a lot of people can make sense, but this is the rule. Mm-hmm. She competed under those rules. Mm-hmm. She shouldn't. You just hope that she has some really good people around her.
Yes.
Because I don't know. At my age, if I was in a stadium with that many people in it and my name was announced and they all started booing me, at my age, I would have a hard time dealing with that.
Right.
But I'm not 16, 17. I don't know how old she is, but at that age, holy smokes.
Well, you know how hard it is to win a state title?
Mm-hmm. No.
One of the greatest moments, athletic moments of that
Right.
person's life.
I've got a
And
smile on my face, though, because I can already tell you the other argument was, well, what about the girl who finished second and lost to somebody who was not a girl 2 years ago or whatever? And so I get that argument, too.
Was there any argument for the girl that won the 400 and beat Aiden?
Well, but whoever finished third would be second then.
Sure.
So it's tough. You are taking a spot. There's a spot away. But again, this person who won it did not cheat, and stop calling her a cheater. She didn't cheat. Now, I did write on, again, private text, which I'm making public, that, hey, if you have an issue, it's the cowardly adults who won't stand up and make a change and defend women's sports or whatever. If you want to say that, that's fine, but don't blame it on the team. And that's obviously it's something that it's a strange thing in my world, because I do argue for traditional women's sports all the time in my own household, and we have a great back and forth, me and Luna do. But but everyone I've talked to, how do you boo? How do you boo that person? You can't boo Aiden. So I'm going to say it because she got booed. I'm going to say congratulations. You are officially the state champion of Oregon. Yes, it's controversial, but you are still officially the state champion of Oregon. So congratulations, Aiden.
Paul, so you're saying in your house you can actually have civil discord on political issues? That's an anomaly right now in this society, isn't it?
It's an anomaly if we just only listen and only say on social media.
Yeah,
it's so true. Weird. I mean, the three of us have different
for sure
ideas on a lot of things. I mean, I wasn't gonna, Cale, you told Tony's just he's a whack job, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Tony's not a whack job. He's not a whack job.
Starts with the Mariners, but
I will
works its way there.
Okay. But Cale, I've never seen you do anything political on social media. No. I rarely do anything on social media politically. I have seen you post some stuff, Tony, and that's okay. I mean, it's okay. We're American. We can do this, and we can still really appreciate each other. Bill Maher was on Gutfeld the other day. Bill Maher and Gutfeld were on the same show the other day, and they talked about how we should be able to agree to disagree and discuss these things maturely. And so anyway, but that's a topic, wasn't it?
Well, it's a good segue. I don't know where you're going next officially, but it's a good segue. A couple of things that I think are important here, and you talked to Mick today, and it'll come up in the flag football, is the WIAA can only do what the member schools ask it to do.
Correct.
Okay.
It's a bottom up. Is that how they call it? It's not.
Well, I mean,
it's not
there's
a top down
the
operation.
inmates are running the asylum. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, just the ADs from like Evergreen School District.
Right. Well, there's
people
that.
like Cale.
But then also, this is a good because obviously with flag football and we had talked about this earlier in the week about Title IX,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe
So yes, we were going to get into
There's
the flag football was
Yeah.
proposed by somebody, and that would have been a girls' sport only, and crazy in the winter, right? Because that's the only time. That's
Yeah. So there. I mean, it had three things going against it.
Okay.
As an amendment. One is so there is a process within the WIAA to request that a sport be run as a 2-year experiment. And then you take the data at the end of those 2 years, and that gets brought to Rep Assembly, and that is you then vote for it to become or not to become an official WIA sport. So that didn't happen in this process. They kind of skipped, which they have the right to do if somebody wants to run the amendment. They kind of skipped a step that I think a lot of ADs were looking at and wondering why. The second one is exactly what you just brought up: is when do you run the sport? Because you don't want to run it in a season where you're going to be taking, because you're going to always be taking participation potentially away from another sport, but you want to find a window where that may not be as significant an impact on another sport. But you also have to consider facilities. So in the fall, we have football and girls soccer that's on so every school has their rectangle where people can practice and play games, right?
right.
So those two sports are already utilizing that space during that time, and it at times becomes a scheduling conflict. Same thing if you look in the spring, you have boys soccer and track and field that are in those spaces. So where you would find the time, there's only so many hours in a day, so where would you find the time or the facilities to be able to do it? So that led a lot of people to thinking, well, we'll put it in the winter. Well, as a lifelong Pacific Northwest resident, I don't know that works for a lot of, and it was really something that when you looked on the east side of the state, they were like, there's no way we can put this outside.
Yeah, I mean, it
in the
barely
winter.
snows. It barely snows in Vancouver. When it does, the whole city shuts down because it's Snowmageddon.
Yes.
But in Eastern Washington, it snows a lot.
those are fun weeks, by the way. I love Snowmageddon.
Yes, I bet you do.
Yes.
So
School employee.
those were two reasons that I heard folks talk against implementing it at this time. And then the third one, and people are trying to brush this off, but is budgetary constraints. Almost every school district in the state right now is facing some level of budget cuts, and some more significant than others. And like, for instance, in my district, last year we cut a number of assistant coaches at the high school level. And so if we were going to add a sport now, that would be in lieu of trying to make those other sports whole again from a coaching standpoint, which we fully intend to do once the economy and our budgets have recovered, that we would put those varsity assistant positions back into place. But to add a sport right now when we're still kind of operating in a deficit because of cuts we already made, that was another concern against it. And you can still run it. You just it's not run as a WIA sanctioned varsity sport.
Well, this is interesting how you said that. This is why I like our podcast, because what you just said. I mean, the emotional on social media was, what? They're not. They didn't vote for flag football because to the outside, flag football has got to be one of the cheapest sports to possibly play.
It's cheaper than tackle football.
It's cheaper than
from an equipment
basket.
standpoint. It is,
Yeah,
yes.
equipment, and then just a few coaches, depending on how many people you have that come out. But
Right.
for the most part, a new sport's not going to have 100 people out. But anyway, on paper, it looks like a relatively inexpensive thing. So the outrage, the social media outrage was, how stupid, how could they do this? How could they do this? Well, now we just got a reasoned explanation from an expert on why it didn't happen. And, but the other thing, go ahead.
No,
Tony.
go ahead. I was just going to say, Cale's the Title IX officer for Evergreen Public Schools, or one of them.
Right.
Yeah. No,
So, I mean, like,
In a lot of ways, it would be a lot easier if flag football for the Title IX numbers it'd be great because it would help with those numbers.
well, and that's what I wanted to talk about. So I'm glad you mentioned that. But go ahead first.
no.
Well, so this what people like the 3-prong test, and you can look this up at any point. And when I was a building AD, we had to do this. We had to report at least once a year, and it has to be proportionate. And usually high schools are 50-50, right? I mean, for the most part,
Close,
right?
yeah, 52-48.
51-48, yeah.
Got it.
So, but if it is 52-48, then 52% of your participants need to be reflected in your turnouts for all sports. I mean, there's always a little give and take.
Mm-hmm.
And earlier, and you mentioned, Paul, the social media outrage. People just like, oh, the WIAA did this, the WIAA did that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, it's the member schools.
Right.
And that's what I wanted to comment on so many. It's not like,
It's not Mick Hoffman
it's not
and three
Mick
other
and the
people,
three people
saying,
up there,
no.
the gavel and this this sports tribunal. No, the member school says we can't run it right now.
Ooh, we should do that, though. We should have a sports tribunal, and then we should run like the eligibility hearings. That would be fun. We should stream them. Sorry, never mind. Back to
Here's the counter to that, right?
Yeah.
Is just because the WIAA approves a sport doesn't mean that a school or a school
Right.
district has to run it.
Right. And that good. I was going to ask you this when you mentioned this earlier. For at least, I don't know how long, but Evergreen high schools, not the district per se, you guys had rugby for a while. Was it? Or was that still? That wasn't a club?
That was a club.
Okay.
It wasn't
but you
affiliated
do have
with us.
lacrosse, correct?
We
You
do.
still
We
have
do.
lacrosse,
We do run lacrosse. Yes.
which is it's a district wide. There's one team for the district,
There's a varsity and a JV team for the district.
so it's the Evergreen district team for
Yeah.
for girls.
Any
lacrosse,
high
right?
school age athlete could
girl.
try out.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Girl.
So I mean, but again, that's the example I was looking for when I was thinking of rugby. I thought you guys did,
No.
because I mean, they actually.
we discussed it at one time,
Yeah.
adding it and taking it under our guys, but didn't have to do it. But the reason we run girls lacrosse, the reason we run girls bowling, is for Title IX purposes to balance our participation numbers.
And bowling is a sanctioned sport through the
Correct.
whole.
It is now.
Because lacrosse is not a WIAA sanctioned sport,
No, but there's a Washington Lacrosse Association that we run our team through.
Right.
And yeah, they're a very good lobby, a very strong lobby for of course for their sport, but they did a lot of great stuff 10, 15 years ago trying to get it
Yeah.
sanctioned. It just hasn't happened, and there's reasons for that too. But what I find interesting is, when we were talking earlier, just before we, even last week when we were talking about this, and another issue is, the payment of coaches. And I did want to ask you,
Yeah.
I know of another district in Clark County where they have tiers for their paying coaches. Football, boys basketball, and girls basketball get paid. Their head coaches get paid differently from other sports, and it might be a 3-tier system. At Evergreen or Vancouver, do you guys know if there's a tier, or does the softball coach make as much as the football coach, or something?
No, and there's a percentage based off of
it's percent.
So
it's tiered
yeah.
in a way. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
it's the way our district at Evergreen is a little different in that we also don't and then add in a step system.
Right.
So if you're the head football coach, it doesn't matter how many years you've been the head football coach, you get paid as the same as any other head football coach in our district.
Okay.
And any coaching position in our district is the same.
Vancouver is tiered, double tiered.
Mm-hmm.
They have service time.
Good.
If I got hired and you were a 5th-year head football coach, you would be making
Okay.
X amount, like
Because-
1,500 more. or
Because
whatever.
I knew another one of the critiques of flag football was some school districts all over the state might be worried about a Title IX thing. Do we have to pay the girls flag football coach the same as the head football coach of traditional football coach?
Well, and again, I mean-
it's different here. We know it's different here, but
Yep.
but all it takes is someone to complain.
I don't know if that would be a Title IX complaint.
Okay, Tony.
And it just I mean, look, let's just go tackle football. Why it is paid more
Right.
is usually because, at least I'll just use 4A level as the example. There's 110 to 120 kids out.
Right. And you also have hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, at the games on Friday night paying money.
Well, there is that. I don't know if that goes. I don't know if that goes into it, at least officially. But
No. But my point is, it hasn't. Well, I shouldn't say it hasn't. I don't believe it's been a humongous issue, but I can say 10, 15 years ago, Evergreen Schools was in Title IX fights every couple of minutes because of a parent complaint here and there for whatever reason. And so I'm not saying you were concerned about this for flag football, but it is out there in this throughout the state. And so,
Title IX suits for districts, regardless of the validity, end up costing districts money.
Right.
And there, and so there has been, there is some regional and local Title IX activists that, try to find this balance. Obviously, being in education for a full career and having 2 daughters, I want those opportunities. Right. I support Title IX. We always end up talking about this on the podcast, which is educational-based athletics or scholastic-based athletics are good for all kids. But when, I think, the flag football in good faith, I mean, that's something that that I know that it'll come up again. But what I'm worried about is that districts like Cale is alluding to is that they won't do it because of Title IX, and they should be doing it because of Title IX.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just one of those things it's a little wrinkle in there where Title IX might have hurt chances. And if you think about it that way, you got to twist. My mind is twisted, but so you got to twist my mind a little just to get there. But there is some concerns out there,
right?
So
the winter would not work, and the field use is a big issue.
The winter wouldn't work in Eastern Washington. It could still work. It would be miserable.
Well, there are a ton of.
It would be cold and wet.
Yeah,
it would be cold and wet.
Right.
There's a ton of kids in Clark County that play soccer
year round. Yeah,
year round from November through March. Club soccer that are fine.
Look, the flag football stuff. It's pretty new right now, and it has a lot of momentum right now.
Yeah, a couple of years it could be back, right?
If it stays, if the interest stays, it's going to get put in,
right?
But that's also part of the reason why they ask for 2-year experiments to really see if there's esports. It was done on a 2-year experiment. The interest statewide to run it through the WIAA wasn't there, and somebody tried to run an amendment again this year to get it through, and it failed again.
Exactly. So.
Yeah.
So our old friend Al Alcantar, he's in Nevada now.
Yeah,
Nevada. I don't know. But
you're the one who spends half your life down there.
I just call it Vegas, baby.
He doesn't leave the city limits.
I can pronounce Vegas, baby. So anyway, but he's down there. He said flag football is a state thing there, and it's awesome. It's very, very successful, and I credit the Raiders, of course, for doing that. The Seahawks tried it in Washington, and it didn't work. So once again, just Cale, the Raiders.
The Seahawks are the Seahawks are behind it.
Yeah, the Seahawks are behind it,
and they do support it.
And Seattle Seahawks, I'm just kind of teasing you as a Raider fan. I'm teasing you guys. Seahawk people, thank you for supporting flag football in the state. It didn't happen this year, but maybe in a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, well, they can run the amendment as many times. I mean, you can run, and it came out of District 4. Dennis Bauer, a friend of mine, who's now a retired athletic director and was a head basketball coach, ran for years trying to expand the number of basketball games our boys and girls basketball teams could play in the state of Washington. And he must have run it. He might have run it 5 consecutive years, and he would get his feedback and be like, "Okay, let's try it this way, and let's try it that way." And it was all it was just semantics on how we were going to try to add these basketball games. And he finally this year he sacked up the bats and did not run it this year.
He just gave.
He said, "I'm not taking another swing at this." Yeah. But yeah. So I mean, they can run it again next year. They can run it as many years in a row as they want to.
Cool. Well, from flag football to boring old regular football, let's go to that. So a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the proposal for Week 10 to be more like Class 4A and 3A, but for the whole state, it looked promising. So this would affect locally the 2A Greater St. Helens League and the 1A League, which is the Trico League. So, Cale, you've got kind of an update on that. It's not a done deal. Is that right?
Yeah, that's really the only update I have. I know that it is still being discussed, and it hasn't. It's going to end up going to a vote, I believe, for district directors within the next month, where they're going to look at that and make a determination. And some districts have said we're only in if everybody statewide is in. and some want to still be able to piecemeal it. But yeah, it's not a for sure thing at this point.
Is that a cost thing? Because you're going to be at least in Southwest Washington for week 10 only. So, let's face it, our fourth place team from the 2A JSHL every year goes to Tumwater and loses by 7,500 points or something like that. I think there's a mercy rule now, so maybe it's only 6,000 points.
I don't know if Tumwater might be able to score that many.
Yeah, but either way. So, I mean, maybe they're thinking, well, I'd rather just go to Tumwater and lose by 60 than have to go to Spokane and lose by 60. Is that...
Yeah, no, I think there are, especially at the small, from a superintendent level, when you're looking at travel, there's definitely that's a consideration. I mean, if we're going to go to 32, typically, as we've talked a lot on this podcast, 1 versus 32, that's pretty much,
and that's what it would be.
Yes,
Tumwater would be facing traditional Tumwater team will be a 1 or 2 seed. Yep. They'll be facing a 31 or 32, and it might not be coming from Clark County, Washington. It might be coming from Tri-Cities. That's a much longer way.
Right.
So, I mean, that kind of thing. And it's just, I guess if I was the fourth place team from the GSHL, I'd rather have a really long road trip just so I have a memorable time with my guys. If I'm going to go get my butt kicked, I want to go have I want to go have fun.
You wanted a quick ride home, though.
I don't know. I enjoyed the road trips with my guys.
Get some per diem and whatever.
Well, Paul, you can just drive for everybody that's got to make that trip.
That's
right?
true too. I would do that.
All you got to do is give you a double animal style, and right. I don't know if I said that right.
That's funny. And once again, we bring up In-N-Out Burger on our podcast.
That's 5 straight times, by the way.
I love it. I had to explain to my grown nephew who lives in Ohio the Burgerville versus In-N-Out argument we've been having. Yeah. But love you, Burgerville. Just don't love you as much as In-N-Out. But love you, Burgerville.
Well, again, they're never going to sponsor us.
They are not. So okay. So from there we can go on. Spring Sports Championships
this weekend.
As we noted at the top of this podcast, Mountain View boys, Camas girls, state champion golf. Congratulations. But this weekend we got Skyview is the number 1 seed in softball.
River Baseball's made the semis.
They're in the semis, and they're the number 2 seed, I believe.
Yeah.
And then the Camas boys soccer team in the semifinals. I can't remember their seed right now, 4 or 5. I think they're 4 or 5.
Isn't Camas baseball as well?
I thought they lost.
Did they?
Sorry. Boy, we run a high school podcast.
Paul, you're a Camas homer. You need to know that.
That's why you asked the question.
Paul, you didn't get a text from the coach, Paul?
How's Skyview baseball doing, Paul?
They did not make it. They did not make it to the Final Four either. And so I think Camas and Battleground Baseball both made it to state, but they did not make it to the Final Four. That's what I believe. So, but I'm doing that off of memory. I don't have my notes right in front of me. Thanks a lot, Cale. I've got a story that's going to post either. It already posted today or it's going to post tomorrow. I'm not in front of my computer, but Skyview coach Kim Anthony, married to the principal of Mountain View, Charles Anthony. So Kim. You know Charles, of course, and you know Kim. So Skyview coach Kim Anthony, her 1991 UNLV team was inducted into the UNLV Athletic Hall of Fame this past Saturday. So the story was how she was all excited to go and see teammates from all these 33 years ago.
But she can't do it.
But it was by district tournament. So she said, well, I never was going to leave my team. And coaches talked about athletes making a dedication and commitment. So what would it look like if I left, just for my personal thing? And she said, so there's never an option of her leaving. So, but her players knew how special it was. So we got a little story on that. And so she was, Kim Smith, I think, at Columbia River? Kim Smith. And now she's, but holy cow, the stats she put up for UNLV softball in 91, like 25-6 with a 0.86 ERA, a team that went to the College World Series.
You're saying that's good?
She was the number 2 pitcher on the team.
Well, Kim, I will say this. So
they had 2 20-game winners that year.
Kim's junior year in high school, she was the number 2.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
The senior ahead of her went to University of Oregon.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So
actually, I shouldn't say that, Kim. I'm sorry. You were always number 1. Sorry, Katie.
But anyway, it was just kind of fun story to talk about. It's just as she said, we asked these girls, if you're a number one seed, if you're so good, you're a varsity softball and you're going to state every year, the sacrifices you've made. And as Kim said, they've missed birthday parties, they've missed dances for softball. So I can certainly miss my thing from 33 years ago. She said, they'll never take away that experience from me, but this is the now, and this is Skyview Storm's turn. And so I just thought it was kind of
They got a good
cool.
shot of winning it.
They have a great shot of winning. There's some great teams. There's some great softball teams. And as Kim said, as you know, Cale is a former varsity coach, you still got to have a lot of things go your way.
Yeah, you got to get some breaks.
You know, and
Always.
Let's see. Yeah. Well, when you won it with Evergreen with 2004, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, and in the other semifinal was the team that beat you the last year. They lost.
They did.
So you got that. You got over the mental obstacle without having to play them again. Now, I think you would have won that game, and I think you guys think you would have won that game.
And not that my guys were upset that we beat Skyline.
Right. Right.
But
Skyline's pretty awesome too.
I think if you'd have given them their choice on who we were going to play, they would have taken Pasco. They wanted Pasco.
Right. But at the same time, that was an obstacle, a mental obstacle,
Sure.
at least that you didn't have to go through. Oh,
Yeah.
well, they don't own us. Well, if they did, that's last year, and they're not even here anymore. Let's
Right.
go. Yeah. So,
Right.
but it's funny. I can remember some of these great stories from 2004 more than I can remember anything that happened 2 weeks ago. But 2004, yeah. You guys are trailing at halftime, and you guys were all laughing at halftime because you knew you were going to win the championship game, right? Was it 14-7 you were down, or 14-0?
I can't remember. To be honest with you, I don't remember. It might have been 14-7, but
Right.
it could have been 14. It didn't matter. At that point in time, we knew we were dominating the line of scrimmage, and there had been some very odd things that had happened in that first half that we weren't going to let happen in the second half.
So, I still remember things like that. And the players, I still talk to some of the players, and they remember being in the locker room going, it was like the easiest. They said the harder game was the semifinal game. I still remember these things. And I can't remember 2 weeks ago, Tony, but I can remember that. I know. I've gone off the rails
with
again.
you for some reason.
Gone off the rails
Memory
again.
is weird.
All right. And so now we go to a little pro sports, I guess. We can do that. And congratulations. Every 4 weeks I ask this, have you guys bought your playoff ticket yet? And you guys get mad at me because it seems like every 2 weeks the Mariners are up or they're down.
Listen,
now
the
they're
last
up.
two podcasts, they've stayed in first place.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. They're down 4-0 right now. So
The big bats for the Yankees
But you've
came out this afternoon.
you've already won a couple of games in New York.
we've already won the series.
Hey,
yeah.
No,
we
it's
lost
a
the
four
series.
game. It's a 4-gamer though.
Oh, it's a 4-game series.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was
Tomorrow morning.
Oh,
Well,
But you split in New York.
Yeah.
You have to split in New York.
Yeah. Well, you've already split, and you might even win the.
Well, we already
game.
lost. We lost the previous series in Baltimore. And
Yeah,
And
that's true.
that looked varsity JV.
that was ugly. That was
I'll be honest.
ugly.
I don't know what the Mariners are doing.
But
there.
anyway, the first place Seattle Mariners.
Thank you.
Congratulations on winning May.
It's
of
Memorial Day. Here
As
we
of
go.
still right now, 3 games in first place.
So yeah, I think you're going to win May.
What was it? I think I read yesterday, Tony. It's been 21 years.
The biggest lead they've had in 21 years.
Oh my gosh.
First place lead. Isn't that crazy though? I couldn't believe that.
Well, I'm a Raider fan, so I can relate.
Yeah, true.
Not too many first place situations late a month into the season for the Raiders in the last 20 years.
All right.
Yeah. What else is going on? Anything else? Then what did we?
No, we'll
not touch
review
on-
the state champions next time.
A couple. We'll get together in a couple of weeks. We'll celebrate whoever wins the state championships. At Clark County today, I sit behind the computer and I watch all the championships on Saturday from a computer screen because I can't go. I'm one person. I can't go to every place, so I just kind of watch and we'll do little roundups but any team that wins a traditional team championship, I like to go do a follow up story on those teams. So I'm hoping to be very busy at high schools next week after Memorial Day.
Good.
So
Very cool.
Yeah.
other than that, I think we've said enough.
Just real quick,
yeah,
Paul.
yes,
you and I talked last night about just how we were gonna, and I just want to say thank you for being a loving father.
Oh, well, thanks.
That was good.
Yeah, it's been
An accepting father too, because some of the students that I work with, that's not always there. I've
heard that. I am very grateful that she told us when she told us.
Right.
It was very early in the process in her mind. Well, I don't know how early, but she didn't tell a whole lot of people, and so we just got her help. You got therapy, but I will say this: the first day, we needed a laugh in our house because it was a shocking. Hey, mom, dad,
Sure.
I think I'm.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
shocking to hear. So later in the day, I went into the room and I just said, "Hey, we love you. You've got a great heart, because always been a great heart, always thought of other people. You've got a great heart. We love you. You are always welcome in this unless you transition to Chiefs, Chargers, or Broncos fan."
Correct.
That was said in our house the day of the news. And so I think she's sick of me telling this story. Now I just told it in the podcast. But hey, I've got my limits. I've got my principles.
Is that a Patrick Mahomes jersey?
Yes.
Get out!
Yes. You're living with grandma. But I don't care. Yeah, I don't care. Stay still the same heart and loving person, and that's what matters to us. And we just want our children to be happy. And you can't be happy if you're a Chiefs, Chargers, or Broncos fan. I don't care how many Super Bowls the Chiefs have won. So anyway, on that note, thanks a lot for listening, everybody. We'll be back in a couple of weeks.